Captain Elena Vargas had always been fascinated by the stars. Ever since she was a child, growing up in the crowded corridors of a space station orbiting the planet Saru, she would spend hours staring out into the infinite expanse, imagining the worlds that lay beyond her reach. Unlike most of her peers who dreamed of fame, wealth, or comfort, Elena craved adventure and discovery. The idea of traveling to places untouched by humans, seeing worlds no one had ever seen, and facing challenges no one could even imagine, thrilled her to the core. That thirst for exploration had guided her life, shaping her career, friendships, and even her way of thinking. She had trained for decades to become a captain, learning every rule, regulation, and survival technique necessary to thrive in the farthest reaches of space. Her crew aboard the Horizon's Edge were a select group of specialists, each chosen for their unique skills and ability to work under extreme pressure. First was Lieutenant Marcus Keene, the ship's navigator. Marcus had a reputation for being able to plot courses through the most treacherous asteroid belts and navigate around deadly solar storms with precision that often bordered on genius. He was quiet and observant, preferring data over speculation. Yet he had a streak of dry humor that occasionally lightened the tense atmosphere aboard the ship. Then there was Dr. Leela Rahman, the chief scientist, whose expertise in xenobiology and planetary geology was unparalleled. Lila's curiosity matched Elena's, and she often led daring excursions onto newly discovered planets to collect samples or observe alien life forms firsthand. Completing the core team were Lieutenant Jonas Silva, the engineer responsible for keeping the ship operational under the most adverse conditions, and Sergeant Tessa Vaughan, the security officer, whose tactical knowledge and combat training gave the crew a sense of safety when the universe itself seemed unpredictable. The mission of the Horizon's Edge was clear but dangerous. They were tasked with charting a newly discovered star system, one so remote that it had been largely ignored by the Interstellar Alliance due to its known hazards. The system was filled with unstable asteroid belts, volatile radiation fields, and planets with unpredictable weather patterns. On paper it looked inhospitable, yet it held the promise of untapped resources, potential colonizable planets, and scientific discoveries that could redefine humanity's understanding of space. For Elena and her crew, this mission was more than just exploration. It was a test of their skills, teamwork, and resilience. It was an opportunity to prove that humanity could survive, adapt, and even thrive in the farthest corners of the galaxy. Life aboard the Horizon's Edge had a rhythm all its own. Days were measured by maintenance schedules, data collection cycles, and planetary scans, while nights were filled with monitoring and occasional stargazing. The crew had learned to live with the hum of the engines, the flicker of holographic displays, and the subtle vibrations that ran through the ship's hull. Despite the dangers, there was a certain peace in this routine, a fragile bubble of normalcy amid the vast, cold emptiness of space. Yet, beneath this calm, everyone aboard knew that danger was always just a step away. A sudden solar flare, an asteroid collision, or a malfunction in the life support system could turn a routine day into a fight for survival. They had trained for these moments, but knowing about them in theory was very different from experiencing them in reality. Elena herself had a unique way of preparing for these challenges. She kept a meticulous log of all missions, noting even minor anomalies or unusual readings. She studied star charts and planetary data late into the artificial night, looking for patterns others might miss. She encouraged her crew to do the same, fostering an environment where questions, observations, and even doubts were welcomed. She knew that in a place as unpredictable as deep space, overconfidence could be fatal, and humility combined with preparation was their best defense. At the same time, she understood the importance of morale. Space could be lonely, isolating, and psychologically taxing, so she made it a point to celebrate small victories, whether it was a successful navigation through a dangerous asteroid belt or a new mineral discovery on a barren planet. The crew's camaraderie was one of their greatest strengths. They had spent months together, relying on each other not just for survival but for emotional support. Marcus's quiet observations often saved them from navigation errors. Lila's fearless curiosity drove them to uncover secrets others might have overlooked. Jonas's technical expertise kept their ship alive in situations that would have doomed others, and Tessa's vigilance ensured that they were never caught completely off guard. Elena was proud of her team. She trusted them implicitly, knowing that their skills, judgment, and courage could carry them through even the most desperate scenarios. And yet, despite their experience and careful preparation, everyone aboard knew that space had a way of humbling even the most skilled explorers. The star system they were charting was particularly intriguing. From the moment they entered the outer rim, unusual readings had started appearing on their sensors. The asteroid belts were denser than anticipated, with irregular orbits that made navigation challenging. Radiation spikes occasionally disrupted communication channels, leaving the crew momentarily cut off from Alliance databases. Some planets seemed lifeless, barren, and uninteresting, yet subtle anomalies hinted at underlying activity, strange magnetic fields, minor gravitational fluctuations, and evidence of energy sources that did not conform to natural patterns. Lila was particularly fascinated by one planet, a small rocky world with deep canyons and geysers that spouted a shimmering, almost metallic mist. She believed that the planet might harbor life forms adapted to extreme conditions, organisms that could survive in environments humans considered uninhabitable. The potential for discovery kept the crew alert, motivated, and deeply engaged with their mission. Even as they faced the stress of isolation and constant vigilance, the psychological strain of space travel cannot be overstated. Days blurred into nights, artificial lights replacing natural cycles, and the vastness of the void creating a sense of timelessness. Isolation weighed heavily on the crew, and small conflicts sometimes arose from stress, fatigue, or differing opinions on how to handle the mission. Elena understood this and worked tirelessly to maintain a balance. She encouraged dialogue, allowed for brief periods of relaxation, and occasionally shared stories from her earlier missions, humorously recounting mistakes or near disasters to remind everyone that even experienced explorers made errors. Her leadership was both firm and compassionate, blending discipline with empathy, and it fostered a sense of unity that became critical when the unforeseen dangers of the star, the system began to reveal themselves. Despite all precautions, there was always an undercurrent of tension. The unknown loomed constantly, and while the crew had charts, instruments, and experience, they could not predict everything. Space had its own rules, indifferent to human ambition or skill. A miscalculation could mean collision with an asteroid, exposure to deadly radiation, or becoming stranded on a hostile planet. Every scan, every maneuver, every decision was made, with the understanding that their survival was never guaranteed. This awareness sharpened their instincts and demanded unwavering focus. It also made moments of beauty, the sight of a twin sunrise over a distant planet, the elegant dance of an asteroid cluster, or the glittering expanse of a nebula fill, even more precious. In those moments, the vast emptiness of space seemed alive, reminding the crew why they had chosen this life in the first place. Elena often reflected on the paradox of exploration. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. The thrill of discovery came with the knowledge that the universe did not bend to human expectations. Life aboard the horizon's edge was both structured and unpredictable, a careful dance of preparation and adaptation. Every mission, every planet, every anomaly was a test of their ingenuity, courage, and resilience. The crew learned to read the subtle signs that hinted at danger or opportunity. Trusting both their instruments and their instincts, they relied on each other not just as colleagues but as a family, bound together by shared experiences and the understanding that, in the void of space, they could depend on no one but themselves and each other as they continued their journey. Elena often reminded herself and her crew that the mission was about more than survival. It was about humanity's place in the cosmos. Each discovery, each observation, each challenge overcome added a piece to the grand puzzle of existence. And yet she also knew that the universe had a way of humbling those who thought they understood it. The remote star system was a testing ground, a place where their skills would be pushed to the limit, where their courage would be tested, and where the unexpected could emerge at any moment. They were explorers, yes, but explorers in a realm governed by forces far beyond human control. In these early days aboard the horizon's edge, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The crew had successfully navigated several challenging zones, collected valuable data, and grown more confident in their abilities. Yet, beneath the routine and accomplishments, a subtle tension lingered, a sense that something extraordinary or perhaps dangerous was waiting just beyond the next celestial horizon. Every sensor reading, every anomaly, every faint signal could be a clue or a threat, and as Captain Elena Vargas stared out into the endless darkness, she felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with a sobering awareness. In the vast universe, their journey had only just begun, and the line between discovery and disaster could be thinner than a beam of starlight. In the heart of the ship, the crew gathered in their common area, sharing quiet conversations, laughter, and debates about the strange phenomena they had observed. It was a fragile moment of normalcy, a reminder that despite the dangers surrounding them, life aboard the horizon's edge continued. Each member of the crew knew that challenges would come, that danger was inevitable, but they also understood that their training, their teamwork, and their unyielding spirit would carry them through whatever lay ahead. And so, with instruments calibrated, courses plotted, and minds sharpened, the crew pressed forward, ready to face the unknown, eager to uncover the secrets of the distant star system, and prepared to write the next chapter of humanity's journey into the stars. The day began like any other aboard the horizon's edge. The hum of the engines, the flickering lights of the control panels, and the soft chatter of the crew created a sense of routine, almost comfort, in the otherwise hostile void of space. Yet, as Captain Elena Vargas often reminded herself, routine was a fragile thing in the deep reaches of the galaxy. The universe rarely followed expectations, and what appeared calm could turn deadly in an instant. That day, as the ship drifted near the outer rim of the remote star system, the first signs of something unusual began to appear on the sensors. At first, it was subtle faint energy readings that didn't match any known natural phenomena. Elena squinted at the monitor, studying the graphs that danced in irregular patterns across the screen. "That's strange," she muttered, leaning closer. Nothing in this system should produce that signature. Lieutenant Marcus Keene, always calm and analytical, stepped forward to examine the readings. His brow furrowed as he cross-referenced the data with known patterns of stellar radiation, asteroid interactions, and planetary emissions. It's not a natural occurrence, he said finally. Whatever is generating this energy, it's artificial or at least highly organized, and it's weak, but detectable. Someone or something left a trace. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Artificial signals were rare in such uncharted sectors. The implication was clear. They were not alone. Dr. Leela Rahman, leaning against the console, considered the possibilities. Her mind raced through potential explanations: an abandoned research station, an exploratory probe gone rogue, or perhaps an encounter with an unknown alien species. We should investigate, she said quietly, almost to herself. This could be an incredible discovery or a warning. Captain Elena nodded. The decision was hers, as it always was, but she valued Leela's instincts. Curiosity had led them to amazing discoveries before, and ignoring the signal could mean missing something significant. As they adjusted course toward the source, the signal grew stronger. It was an SOS, a faint, irregular distress call that repeated intermittently. The freighter emitting it was badly damaged, barely holding together in the void. Alina ordered the crew to approach with caution. Keep shields up and scanners focused, she instructed. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. I want a full assessment before we attempt any rescue. The ship's engines hummed in response, propelling them carefully toward the derelict vessel, weaving between chunks of floating debris from nearby asteroid collisions. Every creak and vibration of the hull reminded the crew how delicate their own ship was, a reminder that the line between survival and disaster was thin. When they arrived within visual range, the freighter looked worse than anyone had anticipated. Its hull was scorched, panels were ripped away, and clouds of debris drifted slowly into space. The SOS signal continued, faint and erratic, like a voice crying out from beyond a grave. The crew felt a chill, even through the protective layers of the ship's reinforced hull. Alina knew the first priority was assessing whether there were survivors, but as they scanned the freighter more closely, the results were grim. Life signs were almost non-existent. The few readings they could detect were weak and irregular, and the AI aboard the freighter was corrupted, offering fragmented, nonsensical data that only added to the sense of unease. Leela's curiosity got the better of her. "Captain, we need to board," she said. "Even if there's no one alive, the data on that ship could tell us what happened. This isn't just about rescue, it's about understanding." Elena weighed the risks carefully. Boarding a damaged vessel in deep space was inherently dangerous. The freighter could be unstable, there could be lingering radiation, or worse, unknown hazards that sensors couldn't detect. Yet, the potential knowledge was too important to ignore. "Prepare a boarding party," she ordered. "Take only what's necessary. Jonas, make sure the suits are fully shielded. Tessa, be ready for anything." The boarding party moved cautiously, tethered to the horizon's edge, as the airlock of the derelict freighter groaned open. Inside, the scene was chaotic. Equipment was smashed, wires hung like vines, and scorch marks covered every surface. The faint hum of failing systems created an eerie backdrop, and the occasional spark or flicker of light made the environment even more unsettling. Lila immediately began scanning for clues, recording every detail. "This wasn't an accident," she said. "Someone or something deliberately attacked this ship. Look at these damage patterns. They're not random." As they moved deeper into the freighter, they discovered evidence that the crew had tried to fight back. Personal logs, partially destroyed, described sudden attacks, systems failures, and fear. The descriptions were chilling. Glimpses of a shadowy threat, sudden energy surges, and crew members disappearing without a trace. Alina felt a lump form in her throat. This wasn't just an isolated incident, it was a coordinated disaster. And they were stepping into the aftermath of something terrifying. Marcus focused on the navigation systems, trying to determine if the freighter's final course gave any hints about its attackers or destination. The readings were corrupted, but small fragments suggested that the ship had been fleeing something from the inner system, perhaps an entity or force powerful enough to threaten an entire freighter. Suddenly, the sensors aboard the horizon's edge picked up an anomaly near the freighter. A strange, pulsing energy signature, unlike anything they had encountered before, seemed to emanate from the derelict ship itself. The readings were erratic, making it difficult to determine the source or nature of the energy. Alina ordered caution. "Do not touch or interact with anything until we understand it," she warned. "If this is a weapon or an unstable energy source, we could be in serious danger." Tessa positioned herself defensively, scanning for movement, her hand resting on the sidearm that she rarely hoped to use. The crew worked carefully, piecing together fragments of data from the freighter systems. It was clear that the ship had been conducting a secret experiment, something unauthorized and dangerous. The logs hinted at attempts to manipulate energy fields or harness unknown forces, and it seemed that whatever they were tampering with had spiraled out of control. Lila shivered as she read the records, the magnitude of the disaster becoming clearer with each passing moment. They didn't just fail. she said softly. They created something. Incontrolable. Whatever did this, it wasn't natural. As the crew debated their next steps, the SOS signal continued, faintly, almost pleading for help. Elena realized that their response had consequences beyond their immediate safety. They were not just observing, they were now part of the story. Participants in a situation far more dangerous than any ordinary rescue mission. The decision weighed heavily on her: ignore the SOS and retreat to safety, or investigate further, risking their lives to uncover the truth and possibly save anyone left alive. The moral and professional responsibilities collided, but Elena knew her answer immediately. The Horizon's Edge was a vessel of explorers, not cowards. To turn away now would betray everything they stood for. The decision to respond to the SOS was not taken lightly. Elena convened a brief meeting with the core crew. "We will investigate, but carefully," she said. "Our priority is understanding the situation, securing any survivors, and protecting ourselves. We will proceed, but no heroics. Every action must be calculated." The crew nodded, understanding the gravity of the moment. Marcus recalculated the safest approach vectors. Lila prepared scanning equipment. Jonas checked all life support systems and shielding, and Tessa ran simulations for potential hostile encounters. Every detail mattered. In deep space, mistakes were often fatal, and preparation was their only shield. As they continued their approach, the freighter emitted sudden bursts of energy, violent spikes that disrupted their instruments and sent jolts through the ship. Elena's stomach tightened. The signals were irregular, unpredictable, almost alive in their behavior. It was as if the freighter itself were aware of their presence, reacting defensively. "Stay sharp," she warned. "Something in that ship doesn't want us here." The crew braced themselves, gripping consoles, scanning every corner, analyzing every pulse. The tension was palpable. The Horizon's Edge drifted closer, tether lines ready for boarding, shields at maximum, scanners searching for any anomalies. The distress call repeated, almost desperate, and Elena felt a mix of determination and fear. This was no longer just a mission, it was a challenge that would test their courage, judgment, and survival instincts to the limit. Whatever had destroyed the freighter, whatever had caused the death and chaos inside, it was out there, somewhere, waiting. And now, by responding to the SOS, they had unknowingly stepped into the path of something far beyond their understanding. The crew continued their preparations, aware that each moment brought them closer to danger. Elena gave final instructions, her voice calm but resolute. "We proceed as a unit. No one goes off alone. Every movement is deliberate. We stick together, we observe, and we adapt." The boarding party donned protective suits, sealed in their tethers, and prepared to enter the freighter's airlock. The soft hiss of decompression echoed through the chamber, a stark reminder of the fragile barrier between life and the cold vacuum of space. As the airlock opened, revealing the damaged interior once more, a sense of foreboding settled over the crew. The freighter was a graveyard of technology and human ambition, scarred by unknown forces, and yet it held secrets they were compelled to uncover. Each step into the dark, debris-strewn corridors brought new discoveries, new dangers, and a growing realization. This was far more than a simple SOS. They were entering a mystery that could redefine everything they thought they knew about the universe, about survival, and about the fragile boundary between human curiosity and cosmic chaos. The stage was set. The rising challenge was no longer theoretical, it was real, immediate, and unavoidable. The crew of the Horizon's Edge had answered a desperate call, and in doing so had placed themselves in a situation that would demand every ounce of skill, courage, and intelligence they possessed. The quiet hum of the ship and the distant stars now felt like a backdrop to a story that was unfolding in real time, and the consequences of their actions would soon reveal themselves in ways none of them could yet predict. The situation aboard the Horizon's Edge grew more tense with every passing moment. The crew had just begun to piece together the mystery of the derelict freighter. But the longer they stayed near it, the more dangerous their position became. The strange energy pulses emanating from the ship increased in frequency, flickering unpredictably across their senses. Marcus adjusted the scanners repeatedly, but no matter how he tried to filter the readings, the signals were erratic, almost as if they were reacting to the Horizon's Edge itself. The more they observed, the more it became clear that this was not a normal distress scenario. Something powerful and unknown had been unleashed, and it had consequences that were far beyond human comprehension. Captain Elena Vargas felt a tightening in her chest. She had faced danger before, encountered anomalies, and survived encounters that tested her limits, but this felt different. This wasn't just a technical or navigational challenge. This was an unpredictable force, one that had already caused the freighter to fail catastrophically and could easily do the same to her own crew. Yet she did not hesitate. "We can't back down," she told herself, and then aloud to the crew. "We are trained for situations like this. We proceed, but with extreme caution." Her voice carried authority, but beneath it was the weight of responsibility of her life aboard her ship depended on her judgment in these critical moments. As the crew continued their assessment, a sudden alert blared through the Horizon's Edge. The sensors had picked up massive objects approaching from multiple vectors, objects moving far too fast to be conventional ships. Marcus squinted at the readings. "Captain, I don't believe it. These aren't ships. They're something else. Something alive, or at least semi-sentient. They're reacting to the freighter and our presence." Elena's heart raced. She had prepared for hostile encounters, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for something like this. The energy readings matched the strange pulses from the freighter, indicating a connection between the approaching entities and the disaster they had just uncovered. Tessa Vaughn immediately activated defensive protocols. The ship's shields shimmered into high alert, and weapon systems were brought online, though everyone knew their effectiveness against an unknown entity was uncertain. "Prepare for impact or aggression," Tessa said firmly. "We don't know what these things want, but I'm not taking any chances." Jonas Silva worked frantically at engineering stations, recalibrating shields and running diagnostics to ensure the ship could withstand sudden energy surges or collisions. Lila's hand shook slightly as she scanned the readings, her mind racing to understand the biology or physics behind the anomaly. Each of the crew members felt the tension mounting. They were trained professionals, yet this situation exceeded any scenario they had ever anticipated. And then, the impossible happened. The freighter emitted a massive burst of energy, blinding in its intensity. The lights aboard the Horizon's edge flickered, and the ship shook violently as waves of force radiated through the hull. Crew members were thrown off balance, consoles sparked, and alarms screamed in response to the sudden surge. Elena gritted her teeth, gripping the captain's chair as her mind raced through every possible emergency procedure. The freighter's energy signature was unlike anything they had encountered. It was chaotic, almost alive, and dangerously unstable. Marcus shouted from the navigation console, "Captain, if that energy hits us directly, we won't survive. We need to move now." Elena made the split-second decision to maneuver the ship away, weaving through the debris field surrounding the derelict freighter. But the unusual aspect of this energy was that it seemed to track them, as if aware of their movements. Every attempt to retreat was met with a surge or pulse that disrupted systems, forcing the crew to improvise constantly. Lila, scanning frantically, noticed something that sent a shiver down her spine. "Captain, these energy pulses, they're not random. They're defensive. The freighter is like a beacon, summoning something. And whatever it's calling, it's powerful." Before Elena could respond, an object appeared through the swirling debris. Massive, angular, and unlike any vessel the crew had ever seen. It blocked the path of the Horizon's edge. Its hull was dark, metallic, and seemingly organic in places. With pulsating lights running along its surface, the sensors identified it as hostile, though its movements suggested intelligence rather than mindless aggression. Elena's mind raced. She had heard rumors of elite secretive forces that intervened in extreme space situations, the Deathworlder Navy, but she never expected to see them, or anything remotely like them, this far out. And yet, something about the sheer size and presence of the object indicated it was not here by coincidence. The entity moved with purpose, closing distance rapidly. Jonas's voice broke through the alarms. "Shields are holding, but I don't know for how long. We can't take another hit like that." Tessa's hand hovered over the weapon controls. "Do we engage?" she asked, though everyone understood the grim reality. They were outmatched by technology and possibly intelligence far beyond human capacity. Elena's decision was immediate. "No," she said firmly. "We observe. We survive. Any aggression could provoke a response we can't handle." The tension on the bridge was palpable. Every crew member was aware that their decisions could mean life or death, not just for themselves but for the freighter and any potential survivors. The anomaly that had begun as a mysterious SOS had escalated into a full-blown crisis. The unknown entities, drawn by the freighter's energy pulses, were approaching fast, and it was impossible to predict their intentions. Elena realized that their role had shifted from observers to participants in a dangerous, unfolding event. The delicate balance between caution and action became the central focus, and she felt the immense weight of responsibility pressing down. Then the freighter emitted another pulse, stronger and more violent than before. This time, it wasn't just energy, it was a shockwave that physically rippled through the surrounding space, throwing the Horizon's edge off its course. Alarms blared and Marcus struggled to stabilize the navigation systems. The crew worked frantically, adjusting thrust, recalibrating sensors, and monitoring shield integrity. The ship rocked violently as debris slammed against its hull, and for a moment it seemed as if the entire vessel might tear apart. Elena's voice rose above the chaos. "Hold steady. Focus on survival. Trust your training." It was then that the first contact occurred. The Deathworlder Navy, the secretive and feared force of the galaxy, arrived almost silently, their presence announced by a sudden spike in energy signatures on the sensors. Massive ships, bristling with weapons and shielding far beyond human technology, surrounded the Horizon's edge and the derelict freighter. The crew felt a mixture of relief and terror. These were elite forces, known for their efficiency and uncompromising methods, but they were unpredictable and had reputations that inspired fear across multiple systems. Elena's instincts told her that they were there to intervene, but the cost of their involvement was unknown. The Navy's ships moved with precision, cutting off the anomalous entities and neutralizing immediate threats. Explosions and energy discharges lit the void as advanced weaponry engaged the hostile forces, stabilizing the situation. Elena's crew watched in awe, realizing that the SOS they had answered had triggered this extraordinary intervention. The sheer scale of the Navy's technology was overwhelming, yet their efficiency was undeniable. Within minutes, the immediate danger was contained, but the situation remained tense. The derelict freighter was still unstable, the energy pulses still erratic, and the mystery behind the disaster remained unsolved. Elena quickly assessed the new circumstances. The Navy's arrival had shifted the dynamics, but it had also introduced new complications. They were no longer operating independently. Their actions were now intertwined with the Navy's objectives. Communication with the Navy was limited, formal, and often cryptic, leaving the crew to navigate both the threat from the anomaly and the unknown rules of engagement imposed by these elite forces. Lila and Marcus exchanged worried glances, aware that any misstep could provoke a response that might endanger everyone aboard the Horizon's Edge. As the immediate crisis stabilized, the boarding party returned to the ship, bringing fragments of data, damaged equipment, and limited information about what had occurred aboard the freighter. The logs indicated a catastrophic failure of an experimental energy source, likely the cause of the anomalies and the aggression they had faced. It was clear that the freighter's crew had attempted to escape, but whatever had been unleashed was beyond their control, leading to their demise. Leela analyzed the data, trying to identify patterns, understand the technology, and assess the risks of further interaction. Each discovery revealed layers of complexity, suggesting a level of danger that could easily extend beyond their current location. The crew spent hours coordinating with the Deathworlder Navy, observing their methods and learning how to operate safely in the environment now controlled by these powerful forces. The Navy maintained a tense but professional presence, securing the area, neutralizing residual threats, and ensuring that the Horizon's Edge was not caught in the crossfire. Alina realized that they had stumbled into a situation that required diplomacy, intelligence, and calm decision-making as much as courage and technical skill. Their survival depended not only on understanding the anomaly but also on navigating the influence of the Navy, whose motives were partially obscured by secrecy and protocol. By the time the immediate escalation had been resolved, the crew was exhausted, physically and mentally drained from the intense confrontation. The events of the past hours had pushed them to their limits. They had faced unpredictable forces, narrowly survived violent energy surges, and been forced to adapt to the presence of an unknown and powerful Navy. The SOS that had seemed a simple call for help had transformed into a life-or-death scenario, revealing dangers and complexities far beyond anything they had prepared for. The universe had reminded them, in no uncertain terms, that their mission of exploration was fraught with unpredictable risks, and that every decision could have consequences extending far beyond their own understanding. Through all of this, Elena maintained a steady presence, guiding her crew with a combination of authority, empathy, and quick thinking. She understood that leadership in moments of crisis was about more than giving orders. It was about maintaining morale, ensuring cooperation, and instilling confidence even when the outcome was uncertain. The crew, in turn, had risen to the challenge, demonstrating resilience, skill, and an ability to adapt under extraordinary pressure. They had faced an escalation that tested every aspect of their training and character, and survived through a combination of preparation, teamwork, and courage. The escalation was far from over, but the immediate threat had passed. The derelict freighter remained unstable, the anomalies continued to pulse faintly, and the true source of the disaster was still a mystery. The crew knew that their next steps would be just as dangerous, requiring careful planning and decisive action. Yet, for a moment, they could breathe, reflect on what had occurred, and prepare for the challenges that lay ahead. They had survived the critical moment, but the events of this phase had forever changed their understanding of the universe, the risks of exploration, and the unpredictability of forces that could strike without warning in the vast emptiness of space. The aftermath of the intense confrontation left the crew of the Horizon's Edge both relieved and wary. The sudden arrival of the Deathworlder Navy had stabilized the situation, but it also reminded everyone just how unpredictable the universe could be. Captain Elena Vargas felt a mixture of pride and unease as she watched her crew recover from the ordeal. Each member had performed admirably under pressure, yet the realization that their lives had hung in the balance was difficult to shake. The energy anomalies around the freighter had ceased their violent pulses, but the derelict vessel remained damaged and dangerous, a floating testament to the disaster that had occurred there. Elena quickly convened the crew on the bridge, emphasizing the importance of careful action. "We need to proceed methodically," she said, her voice steady but firm. "We have survived the initial crisis, but the situation is far from resolved. There is still much we don't know about the freighter, the experiment, and the forces involved. Every decision now must be deliberate." The crew nodded, understanding the gravity of the moment. They had faced chaos, but now they had the opportunity to regain control, gather crucial information, and ensure the safety of their ship and everyone aboard it. The first priority was stabilizing the freighter. Jonas Silva, the ship's engineer, worked closely with the Navy's technical teams to analyze the structural integrity of the damaged vessel. Panels had been torn away, hull breaches had weakened, critical sections and internal systems were either offline or dangerously unstable. Using remote drones and tethered inspection units, Jonas was able to survey the freighter in detail without putting the crew at further risk. The data confirmed what they had suspected. The freighter was a ticking time bomb. Even a minor disturbance could trigger catastrophic energy discharges. Meanwhile, Dr. Leela Rahman focused on the freighter's logs, recordings, and any biological or environmental samples that could shed light on what had gone wrong. As she combed through the fragmented data, a horrifying but illuminating picture emerged. The freighter had been conducting an unauthorized experiment designed to harness an unstable energy source near a distant star. The crew's notes described attempts to manipulate this energy to create new propulsion technologies, but the process had spiraled out of control. The energy had become unstable, affecting the ship, the crew, and anything nearby. Lila shivered as she read through the final logs. They didn't just fail, she said quietly. They unleashed something they couldn't contain. That's why the ship's energy pulses were so unpredictable and why those entities responded to it. Alina listened intently, understanding that the knowledge Leela uncovered was key not only to resolving the immediate crisis but also to preventing future disasters. She coordinated with the Navy, sharing the analysis and requesting guidance on the safest approach to securing the freighter. The Navy, with their advanced technology and experience in handling high-risk anomalies, provided instructions for stabilizing the energy source and neutralizing the threat. The operation required precision, teamwork, and the ability to act quickly while avoiding unnecessary risk. The next phase involved boarding the freighter with a carefully planned strategy. Tessa Vaughan led the team in coordinating with Navy security units to ensure the area was secure. The freighter's corridors remained unstable, with sparking panels, damaged floors, and intermittent energy surges that made navigation treacherous. Elena personally oversaw the mission, moving with caution but determination. Each step was deliberate, every decision calculated, as the team advanced through the damaged vessel. The goal was clear: access the ship's central energy core, stabilize it, and recover as much data as possible to understand the cause of the disaster. As they approached the core, the freighter groaned under the stress of its damaged structure. Leela used portable scanners to monitor residual energy levels, identifying areas of heightened risk. The crew moved carefully, avoiding weak points in the floors and walls. Sparks and low-level energy discharges illuminated the corridors in eerie, flickering light. At times it seemed as though the freighter itself was alive, reacting to their presence with subtle vibrations and pulses. Elena's instincts told her to proceed slowly, balancing the urgency of their mission with the necessity of survival. Finally, they reached the energy core. The system was unstable, emitting low but erratic pulses that threatened to cascade into a larger surge. Jonas immediately began the stabilization procedure, working in tandem with Navy engineers who remotely guided his actions. The process required exact timing, precise adjustments, and constant monitoring of multiple feedback loops. Any mistake could trigger another explosion, endangering everyone aboard. Sweat ran down his face as he manipulated the controls, his hands steady but tense. Lila monitored energy readings while Tessa kept watch, prepared to intervene in case of unexpected aggression or hazards. After what felt like hours, the energy core finally stabilized. The violent pulses subsided, leaving only a faint hum as residual energy dissipated safely. Relief washed over the crew, but there was no time to linger. The freighter remained structurally compromised, and they still needed to recover as much data as possible. Alina instructed the team to focus on salvaging the black box and retrieving keylogs. The data revealed the exact sequence of events leading to the disaster, the unauthorized experiment, attempts to contain the energy, and the final moments of the freighter crew's struggle. It was both tragic and enlightening, providing insight into the dangers of unregulated experimentation in deep space. The Navy ensured the area remained secure as the Horizon's Edge crew completed their mission. Massive vessels hovered nearby, their advanced sensors scanning for residual threats. The presence of the Navy provided a sense of security, but also a reminder of the scale of the forces at play. These were not ordinary challenges, they were dealing with technology and phenomena far beyond human understanding. Alina reflected on the enormity of the situation. The SOS had drawn them into a conflict that combined human error, experimental hubris, and forces that were almost incomprehensible. They had survived, but the lessons were profound. Once the freighter was stabilized and data secured, the Navy began their departure. Their massive ships moved silently through the void, disappearing as quickly as they had arrived. Alina and her crew were left to process what had just occurred. The crisis had been resolved, the immediate threat neutralized, and the freighter rendered safe. Yet the encounter had changed them. The universe had revealed its unpredictable nature, its hidden dangers, and the fragility of human life in the face of forces that could strike without warning. Back aboard the Horizon's Edge, The crew began the process of recovery. Systems checks were performed, minor repairs were conducted, and the team debriefed. Marcus analyzed sensor data to confirm that no residual anomalies remained. Jonas ensured all engineering systems were fully operational, while Lila cataloged the recovered information and prepared reports for the Interstellar Alliance. Tessa monitored security systems and trained the crew in new protocols for handling anomalies. Despite exhaustion, there was a quiet sense of accomplishment. They had faced an unprecedented crisis, survived, and emerged stronger, more knowledgeable, and more resilient. Elena reflected on the experience with a mix of pride and humility. Her crew had performed flawlessly under pressure, demonstrating courage, intelligence, and cohesion. Yet she understood that their success was as much about preparation and adaptability as it was about skill. The universe had tested them in ways that no training scenario could replicate. They had responded to a desperate call, confronted forces beyond comprehension, and acted decisively to prevent further disaster. The experience underscored the importance of vigilance, collaboration, and careful decision-making in a universe full of unknowns. The stabilization of the freighter marked the conclusion of the immediate crisis, but it also opened new avenues for understanding and research. Lila prepared detailed analyses of the energy anomaly, its behavior, and its effects on the freighter. These reports would be invaluable for the Interstellar Alliance, providing insight into a new class of hazards that could threaten explorers across multiple systems. Marcus and Jonas compiled technical data on the structural integrity of the freighter and the behavior of the energy pulses, while Tessa documented security measures and threat response strategies. Every piece of information was carefully preserved, ensuring that the lessons learned would extend far beyond the immediate crew. Elena took a moment to speak privately with each member of her team. She praised their courage, acknowledged the stress and fear they had faced, and reinforced the importance of teamwork and trust. She also reminded them that the universe was vast, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. Their survival depended not just on skill, but on the ability to think clearly, adapt quickly, and act decisively. The experience had bonded them in ways that words could not capture, creating a shared understanding of the fragility and resilience of life in deep space. As the Horizon's Edge resumed its course, leaving the freighter and its anomalies behind, Elena felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced a critical moment, navigated a life-threatening crisis, and emerged with knowledge that could save countless lives in the future. The resolution was not just about stabilizing the freighter. It was about understanding the consequences of human ambition, the dangers of unchecked experimentation, and the importance of responsible exploration. Every member of the crew carried these lessons with them, knowing that their journey through the stars would continue to test their courage, intelligence, and humanity. The universe remained vast, mysterious, and often perilous, yet the crew of the Horizon's Edge had proven that with preparation, teamwork, and determination, even the most extreme challenges could be met and overcome. The resolution of this crisis marked not an end, but a beginning, a foundation for further exploration, a deeper understanding of the unknown, and a reminder that survival and discovery were intertwined in the endless expanse of space. The Horizon's Edge drifted quietly through the void, the stars stretching endlessly beyond the reinforced windows. For the first time since the crisis began, there was a moment of calm. Captain Elena Vargas stood at the bridge, gazing at the infinite expanse, letting herself breathe for the first time in what felt like weeks. The chaos of the freighter, the erratic energy pulses, and the intervention of the Deathworlder Navy had all become events that existed almost like a dream, surreal in their intensity. Yet, the experience had left a deep mark, one that could not simply be erased. It had changed her, and it had changed the crew, in ways that went beyond mere survival. The atmosphere aboard the ship was subdued but tinged with a sense of accomplishment. The crew moved methodically, conducting routine maintenance, logging data, and checking instruments. But beneath these actions was an underlying current of reflection. Each member was processing the events in their own way, wrestling with questions about risk, responsibility, and the vast unknown that had so violently reminded them of humanity's smallness in the face of cosmic forces. Marcus Keene, normally calm and analytical, spent hours reviewing sensor readings and analyzing every anomaly, trying to make sense of the data and the unpredictable behavior of the energy pulses. He understood the patterns now more clearly, but he also realized that some aspects of the event might never be fully understood. Dr. Leela Rahman moved through the lab with a thoughtful, almost somber demeanor. She had cataloged the data and the samples recovered from the freighter, but the experience left her questioning the limits of human ambition. The freighter crew had reached too far, attempting to manipulate forces they could not control, and the consequences had been catastrophic. Lila felt both fascination and sorrow. Scientific curiosity had led to tragedy, but it had also revealed knowledge that could prevent future disasters. She documented every detail meticulously, knowing that the lessons learned here would be studied for years to come by those who ventured into unexplored space. The tension between relief and the weight of responsibility was palpable among the crew. Tessa Vaughn patrolled the ship's corridors and security stations with a heightened awareness. Though she no longer faced immediate danger, her role had shifted from preparing for conflict to ensuring the ship's ongoing safety. But the memories of near disaster lingered. She reminded herself that vigilance was necessary even in moments of calm. The universe had proven that threats could arise unexpectedly, and that preparation and foresight were essential tools for survival. She also realized how deeply the crew had relied on each other's skills and instincts, understanding that trust was just as critical as technology when facing the unknown. Jonas Silva, the ship's engineer, spent hours repairing minor structural damage caused by the energy surges. He moved methodically through the corridors, replacing panels, recalibrating systems, and checking every conduit to ensure stability. His work was technical, precise, and essential, but it also served as a form of mental processing, a way to channel the adrenaline, fear, and relief from the crisis into tangible, constructive action. Every bolt tightened, every system stabilized, was a reminder of the crew's resilience and the fine line between survival and disaster in deep space. Alina convened a debriefing session on the bridge, bringing together the entire crew to reflect on what had happened. She spoke not only as their captain but as a fellow human who had been equally affected by the events. "We answered a call for help," she began, her voice steady yet reflective. "We faced forces we did not understand, survived situations we could never have predicted, and acted decisively to prevent further disaster. Every one of you showed courage, intelligence, and resilience. But more than that, we learned important lessons about the universe, about exploration, and about ourselves." The crew listened intently, absorbing both the praise and the weight of her words. The conversation turned toward reflection on responsibility and consequences. Alina emphasized the importance of understanding that curiosity and ambition, while essential to exploration, carried risks that could not be ignored. The freighter crew's mistakes had been catastrophic, yet their pursuit of knowledge had also revealed critical insights. Leela added her own perspective, highlighting the need for caution and ethical consideration in scientific endeavors. "Exploration is not just about discovery," she said. "It's about understanding the impact of our actions, and recognizing the responsibilities that come with accessing knowledge and power." The crew nodded, recognizing that the events of the mission were as much a moral and intellectual lesson as they were a test of survival skills. Even as they reflected, there was room for gratitude and a sense of camaraderie. The experience had strengthened the bonds among the crew in ways that words alone could not capture. They had faced danger together, relied on each other's expertise, and demonstrated trust and cohesion under the most extreme conditions. Marcus remarked quietly to Alina that he had never worked with a team more prepared and capable, and Leela agreed, noting that their survival was as much about human connection as technical skill. Alina felt a deep pride in her crew, understanding that their collective resilience was a testament to both training and shared commitment. The encounter also provided perspective on humanity's place in the cosmos. Alina spent hours gazing at the stars, contemplating the vastness and unpredictability of space. The universe had reminded them that human life was fragile, that even the most skilled and prepared explorers were vulnerable to forces far beyond their understanding. Yet, it had also demonstrated the potential for human ingenuity, courage, and cooperation to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. This duality, humility in the face of danger and confidence in their capabilities, became a central theme in her reflection. As they continued their journey, Alina encouraged the crew to document personal reflections alongside technical reports. Each member recorded observations about their emotions, decisions, and insights gained from the crisis. Marcus wrote about the patterns and anomalies in the energy readings, reflecting on the limits of prediction and the importance of adaptability. Leela detailed the scientific and ethical lessons, exploring how curiosity must be balanced with caution. Tessa reflected on the psychological aspects of vigilance and preparedness, noting the importance of mental resilience in life-or-death situations. Jonas recorded technical processes and strategies that could be applied in future emergencies. Together, these reflections formed a comprehensive understanding of the mission that extended beyond immediate survival to intellectual and emotional growth. Alina herself wrote extensively, considering leadership, discipline, and the moral responsibilities inherent in exploration. She pondered how to maintain authority while encouraging initiative, how to make life-or-death decisions with incomplete information, and how to foster trust and cohesion in extreme conditions. Her reflections were candid and thoughtful, acknowledging moments of fear, doubt, and uncertainty, but also recognizing the strength and courage of her crew. The act of writing became a form of processing, helping her solidify the lessons learned and prepare for the challenges that lay ahead. The emotional impact of the mission was profound. The crew had witnessed tragedy, survived danger, and faced forces beyond comprehension, leaving an indelible mark on their psyche. Yet, within that impact lay opportunity for growth, for understanding, and for renewed purpose. Alina held informal discussions with each member, providing support, listening to concerns, and reinforcing confidence. She emphasized that resilience was not only about physical survival, but about maintaining mental clarity, ethical judgment, and a commitment to shared goals. Each conversation reinforced the sense of unity and mutual reliance that had been critical during the crisis. The experience also sparked curiosity about the broader universe. The anomalies, the derelict freighter, and the intervention of the Deathworlder Navy raised questions about forces, civilizations, and phenomena far beyond human understanding. The crew recognized that their encounter was just one small chapter in the endless story of the cosmos, and that many mysteries remained unresolved. This awareness fueled both caution and ambition, and understanding that exploration would always carry risk, but that the pursuit of knowledge, when guided by preparation, teamwork, and ethical reflection, could lead to remarkable discoveries. As the days passed, routine returned, but with a deeper sense of purpose. Crew members engaged in training exercises, simulations, and scientific study, applying lessons learned during the crisis to improve their readiness. Conversations were more reflective, discussions about ethics and responsibility more frequent. Alina encouraged open dialogue, fostering an environment where questions, doubts, and insights could be shared freely. The incident had taught them that preparation alone was insufficient. Understanding, reflection, and adaptability were equally essential for survival in the unpredictable expanse of space. Personal growth became evident in subtle ways. Marcus approached navigation with renewed caution and creativity, combining analytical skill with intuition. Leela became more deliberate in her scientific inquiries, carefully considering risks alongside potential discoveries. Tessa integrated lessons from the mission into security protocols, emphasizing both preparedness and ethical judgment. Jonas applied problem-solving techniques to engineering challenges with increased confidence and foresight. Together, their individual growth contributed to the overall resilience and capability of the Horizon's Edge as a unit. Alina often reflected privately on the concept of fate and human agency. The crew had been drawn into a chain of events they could not have predicted, yet they had exercised judgment, courage, and skill to navigate the crisis. She understood that survival in the universe was a combination of preparation, adaptability, and sometimes sheer instinct, but that it also required reflection and learning from each experience. The mission had been a crucible, testing not just physical capability, but character, judgment, and the ability to maintain humanity in the face of extraordinary danger. The final stage of reflection involved considering the broader implications of their experience. The freighter's failure, the anomalies, and the Navy's intervention highlighted the complexity and unpredictability of space. Alina and her crew realized that their survival was part of a larger narrative, one in which human ambition, ethical responsibility, and the vast, uncontrollable forces of the cosmos intersected. The SOS that had drawn them into this perilous situation had become a catalyst for learning, growth, and renewed commitment to the principles of exploration and discovery. By the time the Horizon's Edge set course for its next destination, the crew had transformed. They were no longer just explorers, they were survivors, thinkers, and stewards of knowledge. They had faced unimaginable danger, witnessed the consequences of unchecked ambition, and acted decisively to prevent further disaster. Each member carried the lessons with them, understanding that exploration was both a privilege and a responsibility. They had answered the desperate call, navigated the unknown, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. Alina stood once more at the bridge, watching the stars stretch into infinity. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for her crew, for their courage, skill, and resilience. She also felt a renewed understanding of the universe, vast, unpredictable, and filled with forces that could challenge even the most prepared explorers. Yet, despite the dangers, she felt hope. Humanity had survived, learned, and grown. The SOS that had once signaled desperation had become a story of courage, collaboration, and the enduring human spirit. It was a reminder that even in the darkest and most perilous corners of the universe, knowledge, preparation, and unity could guide them safely forward. The reflection continued as the ship sailed on, each crew member carrying their own thoughts, insights, and emotions. They knew that future missions would present new challenges, that the universe would always hold surprises, and that their ability to respond would depend not just on skill, but on wisdom, ethical judgment, and trust in one another. The mission had ended, but the lessons endured. They were explorers in every sense, not just of space but of human capability, resilience, and understanding. And as the Horizon's Edge glided silently among the stars, the crew looked toward the future with determination, insight, and an unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of crisis.